He yelled at me and pushed me. Yes, my own son. I gathered my things and left. The next day, my daughter-in-law threw a loud party and shouted, "Finally, the old loser is gone! We are free!" They celebrated betrayal, not noticing the justice that was already at the doorstep, because among the crowd of guests, no one saw how slowly the door opened. Before we continue, please subscribe to the channel and let us know where you were listening in the comments. I pulled into the driveway just past 9, jacket draped over my arm, still savoring the warmth of dinner with colleagues from the college. Marcus had told a story about a student who'd turned in a paper on the Civil War written entirely in haiku. We'd laughed until our sides ached. The evening air bit cold against my face as I walked toward the front door, keys already in hand. The house was quiet when I stepped inside. Too quiet. Stuart's car sat in the driveway, and Millicent's sedan blocked the garage. I hung my jacket on the hall tree, loosened my tie. The living room light glowed ahead, television murmuring. Then I noticed my study door, closed. I always left it open. Always. 30 years of habit doesn't break overnight. I turned the handle, pushed. The door swung inward. My desk was gone, where 8 decades of accumulated history had lived. Books on Reconstruction, leather-bound journals, the roll-top desk my grandfather built in 1943. There stood a daybed, floral sheets, decorative pillows. My bookshelves emptied, bare wood where spines had pressed for years. The maps I'd collected, hand-drawn surveys of Underground Railroad routes, rolled up in the corner like discarded wrapping paper. The room smelled of fresh paint, beige walls where I'd kept them forest green. My sanctuary had been erased. I stood in the doorway, breathing carefully. Behind me, laughter drifted from the television. I walked through the hallway, turned into the living room. Stuart and Millicent sat on the couch, her feet tucked under his leg, his arm along the cushions behind her. A comedy show flickered across the screen. Neither looked up when I entered. "What happened to my study?" Millicent glanced at me, then back at the television. Her voice carried the tone someone uses when explaining something obvious to a slow child. "We needed a guest room. The house is too big for one person anyway." Stuart's eyes stayed fixed on the screen. I felt something tighten in my chest. "That's my study, in my house. Put it back." Now Millicent turned her head. Her face held no warmth, no apology, just cold practicality. "We live here too, Hosea. We need space. You'll adjust." Adjust. Like I was an inconvenience to be managed, like the room where I'd graded papers, written lectures, preserved history for 3 decades was simply extra square footage. Stuart finally spoke, still not meeting my eyes. "Dad, don't make this difficult." I walked past them, back toward the study. Toward what used to be my study. I'd start moving things back myself. Tonight, right now. Stuart stood. "Stop." I reached for the doorframe. His hand caught my shoulder. "We're not changing it back." I tried to step around him. His grip tightened, pulling me toward him. "Take your hands off me." His face flushed red. Something erupted behind his eyes. Frustration, resentment, something that had been building for months. "You're ruining everything, always with your old man complaints, your rules, your precious things. This is our life you're destroying." The words echoed off the walls. For a moment, silence held us both. Then he shoved me, both palms against my chest, hard, sudden. I stumbled backward, arms windmilling. My shoulder hit the wall. I caught myself, breathing hard, staring at my son's hands, still raised, still trembling. 3 seconds of absolute silence. From the couch, Millicent watched. A smile curved at the corner of her mouth. Something inside me went very cold. Not anger. Anger burns. This was ice forming over deep water. I straightened, looked at Stuart, looked at Millicent, said nothing. I walked to my bedroom, pulled my travel bag from the closet, the canvas one I'd used for conferences, for research trips to archives in Charleston and Philadelphia. I opened drawers, packed shirts, folded them carefully, socks. My father's watch from the dresser, the documents I kept in my nightstand, passport, insurance papers, the deed to this house with my name alone on the title. Stuart appeared in the doorway. "Dad, where are you going?" I didn't answer, didn't look up, just kept folding, packing, moving with methodical precision. Dad, answer me. Millicent's voice drifted from behind him, lazy and mocking. Let him go. He'll be back when he gets hungry. I zipped the bag, picked it up, walked past them both. At the front door, I paused, looked back one final time at the house I'd bought 40 years ago with my first tenure payment, the house where I'd raised Stuart after his mother died, where I'd built a life from nothing. Stuart stood in the hallway, confusion flickering across his face. Millicent leaned against the wall, smirking. Victorious. The door closed quietly behind me. I stood on my own porch, my house behind me, the street ahead empty and dark. March wind cut through my shirt. I pulled out my phone, checked the time. 9:47. I scrolled through contacts, stopped at Neil Hunter. Before pressing call, I looked back through the living room window. Millicent was laughing, saying something to Stuart. My son nodded, settled back onto the couch, like nothing had happened, like pushing his father was just an inconvenience dealt with, a problem solved. My jaw tightened. I pressed dial. Neil answered on the second ring. Hosea? I need a place to stay tonight. No explanation, no emotion, just fact. Come over, door's open. I walked toward my car, bag in hand. Behind me, through the window, I didn't notice Millicent watching me go. Didn't see her smile widen, but I would remember it later. Neil's porch light was already on when I pulled into his driveway, 2 houses down from mine, close enough to see my roof above the neighbor's oak tree. He opened the door before I knocked, reading glasses perched on his head, flannel robe wrapped tight. He asked no questions, just stepped aside. Guest room's ready. Coffee? I nodded, followed him through the hallway lined with photographs of his late wife Margaret. We'd been neighbors 15 years, friends for all of them. Shared tools, shared dinners, shared the comfortable silence of 2 men who'd learned that some things don't need explaining. We sat at his kitchen table, 2 mugs between us. The clock above the sink ticked steady. Finally, I spoke. I made a mistake, Neil. He waited. But I'll fix it. He studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Guest room's yours as long as you need it. That was all. I lay awake in Neil's guest room, staring at the ceiling. Through the window, I could see my house. Lights still blazed downstairs. After midnight, they finally went dark. I replayed the evening, Stuart's hands shoving me, Millicent's smirk, the casual cruelty in her voice. He'll be back when he gets hungry. My study transformed, erased like I'd never existed. Like 30 years of work, of building a life, meant nothing. When had I become a guest in my own house? When had their comfort mattered more than my dignity? The anger wasn't hot anymore. It had crystallized into something else. Clarity. I sat up, opened my phone, scrolled through old text messages, photos, fragments of conversations. Stopped at Christmas 3 years ago. Millicent, drunk, arm around Stuart. She'd said something that night about leaving Ohio behind, about mistakes she wouldn't repeat. I'd thought nothing of it then, assumed she meant a bad job, maybe a failed relationship. Now, the words took on new weight. I set down the phone, stared at the dark ceiling. Tomorrow, I'd start pulling threads. Morning came gray and cold. Neil left for his Sunday walk around the neighborhood, his routine for years, rain or shine. He squeezed my shoulder as he passed. Take your time. I stood at the guest room window with coffee, direct sightline to my house. Sunday morning stretched quiet. Around noon, the first car arrived, then another. By early afternoon, a dozen vehicles lined the street. People I didn't recognize carried bottles, bags of food. Music started, faint at first, then louder. Bass thumping through walls. Stuart appeared briefly on the porch, shoulders hunched, then disappeared back inside. They were having a party. Less than 24 hours after I left. Neil returned from his walk, found me still at the window. What's happening over there? I didn't turn. Celebration, apparently. He looked, saw the cars, the people streaming into my backyard. Want me to? No, just watch with me. He pulled up a chair. As evening fell, the party swelled. People spilled into the yard. Through gaps in the crowd, I watched Millicent move among guests, animated, laughing. She wore a dress I'd never seen, red, fitted, expensive. The music pulsed. Someone brought out champagne. Stuart hovered at the edges, drinking steadily, looking smaller with each glass. Then, around 8, Millicent stepped onto the front porch. She was drunk, swaying slightly. Someone inside shouted something. People roared with laughter. Millicent raised her glass. Her voice carried across the yard, across the street, through Neil's window where I stood 2 houses away. "Finally! The old failure is gone. We're free." The guests erupted, clinking glasses, cheering. Someone yelled, "To freedom!" Millicent threw her head back, laughing. Stuart appeared behind her, tried to pull her inside. She shrugged him off hard enough that he stumbled. "Don't be such a coward, Stuart. He's not coming back. This is our house now." My hands tightened around the coffee mug until my knuckles went white. Neil stood beside me, silent witness. But my face stayed calm, almost peaceful. "Old failure," I repeated quietly. Interesting choice of words. I set down the mug, pulled out my phone, scrolled back through years of messages, photos, casual conversations. Found what I was looking for. That Christmas photo. Millicent, clearly drunk, grinning at the camera. That night. What else had she said? Something about Cleveland, about learning from mistakes, about never going back to Ohio. I'd dismissed it then. Bad job, bad apartment, bad breakup. People said things when they drank, but watching her celebrate my absence, the words shifted into focus. I opened my browser, typed Millicent Porter, Cleveland, Ohio. Hit search. Neil glanced at the screen. "What are you doing?" I didn't answer immediately. Just scrolled through results, marriage records, public documents, property transfers. Then I found it. "Research, Neil. I taught history for 30 years. I know how to dig up the past." The party raged on into the night. Around 10, guests started leaving. Loud goodbyes, promises to come back soon. Lights in my house finally dimmed around midnight. I was still at the window, phone in hand. Notepad beside me, filling with notes in my careful historian script. Neil brought me tea. "You should sleep." I finally turned away from the window. My face felt different, harder, focused. I found something. I showed him the screen. Millicent Porter married someone in Ohio 8 years ago. Gordon Hayes. No divorce record I can find. She just disappeared. Neil absorbed this. "Stuart knows?" I doubt it. She changed her name back to Porter before she met him. I scrolled further. But Gordon Hayes didn't disappear. He's still there, still looking for her. I opened a new message. The number came from a public records search. Gordon Hayes, Cleveland, Ohio. I typed carefully. "I know where Millicent Porter is. We should talk." I hovered over send, looked back at the dark house where my son slept beside a woman who just called me an old failure, where my study had been erased, where I had been shoved, mocked, dismissed. I pressed send. "Now we wait." Neil said nothing, just nodded. Outside, the street was finally quiet. Inside, I felt something new building, not rage, not hurt, purpose. 2 days passed. Monday, I let Stuart and Millicent settle into their routine. Tuesday morning, I sat in my car across from my house, watching. I'd checked Stuart's work calendar online. His company posted team schedules publicly. Both of them left by 8:30 on weekdays. Their cars disappeared down the street. I waited another 10 minutes, counting seconds, making certain. The house looked different already. New curtains in the front window, pale yellow, Millicent's taste. A decorative wreath hung on my door, erasing me piece by piece. I pulled into the driveway. My key still worked. They hadn't changed the locks yet. Inside, the air smelled wrong. Millicent's perfume everywhere, heavy and floral. Furniture rearranged in the living room. The couch pushed to the opposite wall, new throw pillows scattered across it. I moved quickly through the hallway to my bedroom. Except it wasn't mine anymore. The bed was different, bigger, modern frame. My dresser sat pushed into the corner like an afterthought. Their clothes filled the closet, but they didn't know everything. I knelt, pressed the panel at the back of the closet. It released with a soft click, the hidden safe I'd installed 20 years ago. The combination turned smoothly under my fingers. Inside, property deed with my name alone on the title, car title, my will, bank statements, birth certificates, everything that mattered, everything that proved ownership. I filled my briefcase methodically, listening for any sound of return. On my way out, I paused in what used to be my study. The guest room now, complete with those ridiculous decorative pillows and generic landscape prints on the walls. But one of my books remained on a shelf, spine visible. The Art of War. I took it. Fitting. The Rochester Public Library became my office. I arrived when the doors opened, claimed a corner desk near the genealogy section. 30 years teaching history had taught me how to trace records, cross-reference sources, build timelines from fragments. First, marriage records. New York State showed nothing for Millicent Porter marrying Stuart Tucker. Interesting. I expanded to Ohio. There it was. Cuyahoga County, June 12, 2015. Millicent Ann Porter married Gordon Michael Hayes. I printed the record. My hands shook slightly. No divorce filing in Ohio. I checked New York. Nothing. Pennsylvania, Michigan, surrounding states. Nothing. The marriage was never dissolved. Millicent simply vanished. Next, social media. Gordon Hayes wasn't hard to find. His Facebook profile was public. Posts spanning years. Desperate posts. Still looking for Millicent Porter Hayes. If anyone has information, please contact me. I scrolled back through time. Posts about debt collectors calling, credit destroyed, business struggling. The dates stretched from 2018, 2019, 2020, continuing to the present. The most recent from 2 weeks ago, 8 years of searching, $85,000 in debt she left me with. I just want justice. I photographed each post with my phone. This wasn't just leverage, this was a weapon. Each evening I spread documents across Neil's guest room desk. He brought dinner without asking questions, but his eyes lingered on the papers, marriage certificates, printed Facebook posts, my notes in precise handwriting. "You're building something," he observed. I nodded. A case, like a historical argument, evidence, sources, narrative. I created a timeline on legal paper. 2015, Millicent marries Gordon in Cleveland. 2017, she disappears, moves to Rochester, reverts to maiden name Porter. 2018, she meets Stuart through work. 2019, they marry, except she's already married, making their union invalid. 2020 through 2025, she builds a life on top of a lie. She's a ghost, I told Neil, living under false pretenses, but ghosts can be exposed. Neil picked up the marriage certificate, studied it. "What are you going to do with this?" My answer came easily. Remind her that the past doesn't stay buried. Thursday evening, 1 week after leaving my house, I drafted the Facebook message to Gordon Hayes, rewrote it 3 times. The tone needed to be right, informative, not threatening, clear, not desperate. Final version. "Mr. Hayes, my name is Hosea Tucker. I live in Rochester, NY. I believe I've found Millicent Porter. She's been living here for 8 years under her maiden name. I'm not asking for money or making threats. I'm offering information because I believe you deserve closure. If you're interested in discussing this, I can provide proof of her location and current circumstances. This concerns me personally. She's married to my son, though I've recently discovered her previous marriage to you was never legally dissolved. We should talk." I attached one photo, a screenshot from Millicent's Instagram, posted 3 days ago. Her at a restaurant, wine glass raised. Caption, "Living my best life." I hovered over the send button. This was the point of no return. Once Gordon knew, events would follow their own logic. I thought of Millicent's voice, old failure. I thought of Stuart's hands shoving me. I thought of my study, erased. I clicked send. The reply came 6 hours later, late Thursday night. I was still awake, phone in hand. The notification lit up the dark room. Gordon Hayes. "Is this real? I've been looking for 8 years. If you're lying or trying to scam me, I'll report you. But if this is true, I need to know everything. When can we talk?" I typed back immediately. "This is real. I have marriage certificates, her current address, proof she's been living here since 2017. I understand your caution. I would be too. Are you willing to come to Rochester? We should meet in person. I can show you everything I've found." His response came within minutes. "I can drive up this weekend. Where and when?" I considered. Not Neil's house. Too personal. Not my own house. Too risky. Somewhere public. Neutral. Saturday morning, Nutcracker Cafe on Lake Avenue near Lake Ontario. 10 o'clock, I'll be at the back table. I'm 62, gray hair. I'll have a folder of documents with me. Gordon's reply, I'll be there. Don't let me down. I set down my phone. The pieces were moving into place. Friday passed in preparation. I organized documents, marriage certificate, Millicent's Instagram photos showing her in Rochester, screenshots of Gordon's posts about searching for her, printouts of Stuart and Millicent's wedding announcement from 2019. I created 2 copies of everything, one for myself, one for Gordon. Neil watched me work. You're sure about this? I looked up. I've never been more certain of anything. That night, I drove past my house one more time. Lights blazed inside. I could see figures moving behind the curtains. My house, occupied by people who'd pushed me out, who'd celebrated my absence. Saturday morning would change everything. I returned to Neil's, set my alarm for early morning. Tomorrow, I'd meet Gordon Hayes. Tomorrow, the past would catch up to Millicent. I lay awake, not from anxiety, from anticipation. This was what justice felt like, cold, patient, inevitable. Saturday morning arrived cold and bright. I reached Nutcracker Cafe 45 minutes early, claimed a corner booth with a clear view of the entrance. The place was small, locally owned, half full with weekend regulars. I ordered black coffee, spread my folder on the table, not open, but visible. Proof I'd come prepared. My phone showed 9:30. Gordon said he'd drive from Cleveland overnight, estimated arrival around 10. I watched the door. Young couple with a toddler, elderly woman with a newspaper, 2 college students with laptops. None of them Gordon. At 9:55, a man entered who matched the Facebook photos but looked worse. Thinner, harder edges, exhaustion carved into every line of his face. Mid-40s but appearing a decade older. He scanned the cafe, spotted me, the folder. Our eyes met. Gordon nodded once. I gestured to the empty seat across from me. He slid into the booth without preamble. Show me proof. No greeting, no handshake. His voice was rough, like he hadn't slept. Probably hadn't, driving 6 hours through the night. I respected the directness. I opened the folder, slid the marriage certificate across the table. Cuyahoga County, Ohio, June 12, 2015. Millicent Ann Porter and Gordon Michael Hayes. Gordon picked it up with shaking hands, stared at it. Where did you get this? Public records. It took me 3 days to find, but it's there. No corresponding divorce filing in Ohio or any surrounding state. I slid over the next document. This is a wedding announcement from the Rochester newspaper, November 2019. Millicent Porter marries Stuart Tucker, my son. Gordon's jaw tightened, muscles working beneath his skin. She told me she wanted a divorce in 2017, said she'd file the papers, then she disappeared. I produced the Instagram screenshots. She's been here since 2017, built a new life, pretended the old one never existed. Gordon's hands became fists on the table. Where is she right now? I signaled the waitress for more coffee, gave him time to process. When he looked up, his eyes were wet, but his voice stayed controlled. We met in 2014. She was charming, ambitious, talked about starting a catering business. I believed in her. We got married fast, too fast, I see now. He paused, accepted the coffee, took a long drink. Within a year, she convinced me to take out business loans, $40,000 initial investment, then personal loans for equipment, $25,000 more, credit cards for inventory, another $20,000. The business never launched. She always had excuses. Permits delayed, suppliers backed out, market wasn't right. Meanwhile, she spent money, new clothes, expensive dinners, a car she needed for deliveries that never happened. His voice cracked slightly. February 2017, I woke up and she was gone. Closet empty, bank account drained. She took $12,000 in cash we'd saved for rent. Left a note saying she needed space, would file for divorce, would contact me about debt division. He looked directly at me. Never heard from her again. Debt collectors started calling within months. My credit score collapsed. I had to close my construction business. Couldn't get financing. I've been rebuilding for 8 years, barely surviving. Silence stretched between us. Why are you helping me? I didn't answer immediately. I pulled out one more document, a photo taken from Neil's window. The party at my house. Millicent on the porch with her glass raised. This was taken a week ago. That's my house, the one I bought 40 years ago, raise my son in. Millicent and Stuart have been living there, slowly taking control. Last Saturday, I came home to find they'd converted my study into a guest room without permission. When I protested, my son shoved me. I left. I tapped the photo. The next day, Millicent threw a party to celebrate my absence. She called me an old failure and said they were finally free. Gordon studied the photo. Understanding crossed his face. So this is about revenge. I shook my head. It's about consequences. She took your money, your credit, your business. She's trying to take my house, my dignity. She leaves destruction behind her and starts fresh somewhere else. That needs to stop. I leaned forward. I'm not asking you to do anything illegal, Gordon, but you have legal rights here. She owes you money. You have an undissolved marriage. I just want her to face what she's done. Gordon was quiet for a long moment, processing everything. Finally, what exactly are you proposing? I outlined it carefully. You have grounds to file for divorce and financial restitution in Ohio. The marriage was never dissolved, and she left you with debt. Those are facts documented. Filing those papers will create legal exposure for her. Her marriage to my son is technically invalid. Bigamy. That has consequences. I paused. I'm not asking you to confront her violently or threaten her. I'm asking you to pursue what's legally yours. Gordon nodded slowly. But you want more than just paperwork, don't you? I allowed a slight smile. I want her to understand that actions have consequences, that she can't just erase people and move on. If you were to appear in Rochester, to personally serve her with legal notice, well, that's your right as the plaintiff in a financial case. Gordon's expression shifted, not quite a smile, something harder. When? Soon. I need to finalize a few things first. Legal action regarding my house, ensuring my position is protected. But within a few weeks, there will be an ideal moment. She's planning things, thinking she's won. I want you there when reality catches up to her. Gordon extended his hand across the table. Tell me when. I've waited 8 years. I can wait a few more weeks for the right moment. We spent another hour in the cafe. I provided Gordon with detailed information, Millicent's current address, her work location, Stuart's schedule. Gordon took notes, his earlier exhaustion replaced by focus. I'll need to file the papers in Ohio first, Gordon said. Establish the legal case officially. Then when I come to Rochester, it's not just about confrontation. It's about serving legitimate legal documents. I approved. Exactly. Everything must be above board. You're not harassing her. You're pursuing legal rights. Gordon packed the copies of documents I'd prepared. You know this won't get me my money back, right? Even if I win a judgment, she'll probably declare bankruptcy. I nodded. I know. This isn't about the money for either of us. It's about something more important. It's about making sure people can't just use others and walk away clean. We stood to leave. Gordon paused at the door. I'll start the filing Monday. I'll call you when I have a court date. Then we'll plan my trip to Rochester. I shook his hand again. Thank you, Gordon, for being willing to face this. I watched Gordon drive away, brake lights disappearing down Lake Avenue toward the highway. I sat back in my car, folder on the passenger seat, phone in hand. The next steps were clear. Contact a lawyer about eviction procedures for Stuart and Millicent. Formalize my ownership documentation. Prepare legal grounds for reclaiming my house. But that was administrative work. The real power move was already in motion. Gordon filing papers in Ohio, establishing Millicent's bigamy and debt. I started my car, drove back toward Neil's house. On impulse, I detoured past my own home. Saturday mid-morning, Stuart's car sat in the driveway. Through the front window, I could see movement, normal weekend life. No idea what was coming. I didn't stop, just drove slowly past. In 2 weeks, maybe 3, Gordon would return to Rochester. Then Millicent's carefully constructed lie would collapse. I almost felt sorry for Stuart. Almost. But Stuart made his choice when he raised his hands against his father. The following Tuesday, I sat in a law office downtown, 3rd floor of a renovated brick building on East Avenue. The nameplate read, Martin Caldwell, attorney at law. I'd met Martin years ago through the college. He'd guest lectured in a business law course. We'd stayed cordial. Not friends exactly, but professional acquaintances. Martin was mid-50s, methodical, no nonsense. The kind of lawyer who read every word before signing anything. He listened as I explained, keeping emotion out of it. Son and daughter-in-law living in my house without lease or rental agreement. They'd taken over space, made unauthorized changes. Physical confrontation had occurred. I produced the property deed, his name alone on the title. I want them out. What's the legal process? Martin leaned back, steepled his fingers. New York requires formal eviction procedures, even for family members without leases. First step, written notice to vacate, giving them 30 days. If they don't leave, you file a holdover proceeding in court. With clear ownership and no lease, you'll win, but it takes time. Figure 2 to 3 months total. I nodded. Start the paperwork. I want everything by the book. No room for them to claim I acted improperly. April 1st arrived. Fitting date, I thought darkly. Martin's office had prepared the official notice to vacate. Formal legal language, notarized, ready for certified mail with return receipt. Stuart Tucker and Millicent Porter Tucker are hereby notified they must vacate the premises at address within 30 days of receipt of this notice. Failure to comply will result in legal eviction proceedings. I stood at the post office counter, holding the envelope. This was the formal declaration of war. No ambiguity. I handed it to the clerk, watched her stamp it, got the tracking number. The notice would arrive tomorrow, Wednesday. I imagined Millicent's face when she opened it. Stuart's panic. Good. Let them feel uncertainty for once. That evening, Neil mentioned casually over dinner. Ran into the Hendersons today. They live 2 doors past your place. Said Millicent told them you'd moved out permanently, that you and Stuart agreed you'd turn the house over to them. My fork paused midair. Is that so? Neil nodded. She's telling everyone the house is theirs now. Even had some interior designer over yesterday. Heard them discussing paint colors for the living room. My expression didn't change, but inside, cold satisfaction settled. Let her get comfortable. The fall would be harder. Over the next 2 weeks, I developed a routine. Stuart's work schedule was predictable. Left at 8, returned around 6. Millicent worked from home most days, but had client meetings downtown Tuesdays and Thursdays. Those were my windows. The spare key still worked, the one I'd hidden in the garage behind a loose board, installed years ago for emergencies. They never found it. First visit, I walked through my own house like a stranger casing the place. The living room furniture was completely rearranged. My old leather chair, the one I'd read in for 20 years, relegated to the basement. New artwork hung on walls, my family photos removed. In the master bedroom, my belongings sat boxed in the closet corner, like storage for eventual disposal. I photographed everything with my phone, changed locks on the study door. They'd finally locked it after taking it over. New paint throughout. Their possessions spread through every room. In the kitchen, I opened cabinets, expensive cookware I'd never bought. I checked the mail on the counter, renovation estimates from contractors, $15,000 for kitchen updates, $8,000 for bathroom remodeling. They were planning to spend my equity. I photographed those too. Second visit, I found Millicent's laptop open on the dining table. She'd forgotten to close it before leaving. I shouldn't look, but strategic advantage mattered. Email open to a message from a realtor. Great to meet you. Attached is the market analysis for your property. Current value estimated at $420,000. Let me know when you're ready to discuss listing strategy. My blood ran cold. She was planning to sell. My house. I photographed the screen. Stuart called repeatedly after the eviction notice arrived. First message, Wednesday evening. Dad, what is this? A legal notice? We need to talk. This is crazy. Call me back. I deleted it. Thursday. Dad, please. Millicent is upset. We don't understand why you're doing this. We can work something out. Just call me. Delete. Friday. This is ridiculous. You can't just kick us out. We've been living here for 3 years. We have rights. Call your lawyer off. The tone shifted, desperation to anger. I didn't respond to any of them. On Saturday, Stuart appeared at Neil's door. I listened from the kitchen while Neil answered. Is my father here? I need to talk to him. Neil's voice stayed carefully neutral. Hosea is staying with me, yes, but he doesn't want to see you right now, Stuart. This is insane. Over a stupid argument, he's trying to make us homeless. That's between you and him, and your lawyers, apparently. Stuart's voice cracked. Will you at least tell him to call me, please? Neil paused. I'll tell him you stopped by. That's all I can do. The door closed. I remained in the kitchen, unmoved. Stewart had his chance to be reasonable. That chance ended when he raised his hands. I updated Gordon weekly via encrypted messages. Gordon's suggestion, cautious after years of searching. Notice served April 1st. They have 30 days to vacate. Millicent is telling neighbors I abandoned the house voluntarily. She's also planning renovations and potentially selling the property. Gordon's response, filed divorce papers in Ohio April 5th. Court date set for preliminary hearing May 15th. Also filing for debt restitution. $85,000 plus interest. Total claim, $127,000. When do you want me to come to Rochester? I considered timing. The eviction notice expired May 1st. If they didn't leave, and they wouldn't, I'd file court papers May 7th. Hearing would be scheduled for late May or early June, but there was opportunity before that. Wait for my signal. Something's developing that might create the perfect moment. Days later, Neil provided it. Henderson's mentioned Millicent invited them to a party, April 25th, Friday evening, celebrating the house officially being theirs, apparently. I read the message twice. A party, a celebration, perfect stage for Gordon's entrance. I messaged Gordon immediately. April 25th, evening. Be ready to drive to Rochester that day. I'll send you the exact time. The week before April 25th, I made final visits to my house. Tuesday, I verified the spare key still worked. It did. Thursday, I observed Millicent meeting with a caterer, discussing menu options for 30 to 40 guests. She was spending money freely, my money, I realized. She had access to Stewart's accounts, which Stewart funded partly by not paying me any rent for 3 years. The mathematics of betrayal. Friday, 1 week before the party, I called Gordon. Next Friday, April 25th, she's throwing a party at my house, celebrating taking it over. Arrive around 8 in the evening. The address is... I provided it. Walk in. The door will be unlocked with guests coming and going. Find Millicent. Tell her who you are and why you're there. I'll be watching from across the street. Gordon's voice was tight with anticipation. 8 years I've waited. 1 more week won't kill me. Gordon, I added. Remember, nothing illegal. You're there to inform her about the Ohio court case. That's all. I understand, but she's going to know the past caught up to her. I allowed myself a small smile. That's exactly the point. April 25 arrived. Friday morning, I woke at Neil's house, calm and focused. Today, everything changed. I spent the day in normal activities. Breakfast, reading news, lunch with Neil. Didn't obsess, didn't pace. This was a chess match, and my piece was positioned perfectly. Evening approached. Around 6, cars began arriving at my house. I watched from Neil's living room window as guests parked, carried dishes and bottles inside. Music started. Lights glowed warmly. From outside, it looked like a perfect party. Celebration, joy, new beginnings. Millicent appeared on the porch greeting guests, animated, laughing. Stewart beside her, less enthusiastic but participating. 7:30. My phone showed a text from Gordon. On my way, ETA 8:10. I responded, door unlocked, walk straight in, find her. I settled into Neil's armchair, positioned for perfect view of my house. Neil brought coffee, sat beside me silently. 7:45, 8 o'clock. The party was loud now, music thumping, people visible through windows. 8:10. Headlights approached from the east. The car pulled to the curb across from my house. Gordon's truck, Ohio plates visible in the streetlight. I watched the driver's door open. Gordon stepped out. He paused, looking at the house. Lights blazing, music audible from the street. Even from 2 houses away, I could see his jaw set, shoulders squared. 8 years of searching, ending at a suburban party in Rochester. Gordon crossed the street, walked up the driveway. A couple left the house as he approached, laughing, carrying empty wine bottles to their car. The front door stood open behind them, people flowing in and out, typical party chaos. Gordon didn't hesitate. He walked straight up the porch steps and inside, disappearing into the crowd. I checked my watch, 8:15 exactly. I leaned forward in Neil's armchair, coffee forgotten on the side table. Neil sat motionless beside me. Is that him? I nodded once. That's him. Inside the house, the party continued, unaware. For about 30 seconds. Through the windows, I watched Gordon move through the crowd, visible in flashes between other guests. He was scanning faces, looking for one specific person, the living room, the hallway, toward the kitchen. Then Gordon stopped. I couldn't see Millicent from this angle, but I knew Gordon found her. The man's posture changed, became rigid. The music was still loud, guests still talking, drinking. Gordon moved forward, out of sight into the kitchen. For a long moment, nothing visible changed from outside. Then someone inside turned down the music, not off, just lower. Conversations became audible through open windows, confused murmurs. More people moving toward the kitchen. Stuart appeared in the hallway, pushing through guests, his face confused. Now the music stopped completely. The sudden silence was jarring. Guests spilled from the kitchen back into the living room, looking uncomfortable, glancing at each other. Through the kitchen window, visible from Neil's angle, I saw Millicent's face, white as paper, backed against the counter. Gordon stood 3 feet from her, not threatening, just present. Stuart reached them, put himself between Gordon and Millicent. Gordon said something. I couldn't hear words, but could see his mouth moving, calm, deliberate. Stuart's body language read defensive, protective. Millicent suddenly pushed past Stuart, trying to move toward the back door. Gordon sidesteps, blocks her path, not touching her, just positioning himself. She stopped, trapped between the counter and his presence. More words exchanged. Stuart looked between them, increasingly confused. Gordon pulled something from his jacket, papers, folded. He held them up, said something. Millicent's face crumbled. She shook her head violently, mouthed the word, no. Stuart grabbed her arm, asking questions. His face showed complete confusion. Gordon's voice rose enough that fragments carried across to Neil's window. 8 years, $85,000, never divorced. Stuart's expression shifted from confusion to shock. He dropped Millicent's arm, stepped back from her. She reached for him, but he pulled away. More guests were leaving now, sensing drama, not wanting involvement. Cars started, quick goodbyes. The party was disintegrating rapidly. Gordon remained steady, not advancing, just standing there like an immovable monument to consequences. Millicent suddenly bolted, not for the back door, but around Gordon, through the living room toward the front door. She wasn't looking where she was going, shoving past confused guests. Gordon didn't chase her, but his voice followed, loud and clear now. You can't run this time, Millicent. The Ohio court has your current address. The papers are filed. I watched Millicent burst through the front door onto the porch, stumbling slightly in her heels. The new dress she'd worn so proudly now disheveled. Her face was panicked, mascara smudged. She looked around wildly, saw the remaining guests watching from the yard. For a moment she froze, caught between the house behind her and the audience ahead. Stuart appeared in the doorway. Millicent, what is he talking about? Who is that man? She didn't answer, couldn't answer. Gordon emerged behind Stuart, still calm. I'm Gordon Hayes, her husband. We married in Ohio in 2015, never divorced, which makes your marriage to her invalid. The words carried clearly in the now quiet night. Stuart's face went blank, processing. That's not... We've been married since 2019. Gordon nodded. Check the records. Cuyahoga County, Ohio. Marriage certificate is public record. While you're at it, ask her about the $85,000 in debt she left in my name. Millicent made a choking sound, turned and ran down the porch steps toward her car parked in the driveway. She fumbled with keys, dropped them, picked them up. Stuart watched from the porch, frozen. Millicent! No response. She got the car door open, fell into the driver's seat. The engine started. Millicent's car lurched backward out of the driveway, too fast, nearly hitting a remaining guest's vehicle. Tires squealed as she accelerated down the street, disappearing around the corner. The remaining guests stood in awkward silence. Stuart remained on the porch, Gordon beside him. You need to see proof? Gordon asked, not unkindly. He held out the papers, legal documents from Ohio court. Stuart took them with shaking hands, scanned them under the porch light. His face went gray. This is real. It wasn't a question, Gordon nodded. Filed 2 weeks ago. Preliminary hearing is May 15th. She owes me money, she owes me 8 years of my life, and legally, she's still my wife. Stuart looked up. Why now? Why here? Gordon's expression was grim. Because someone told me where to find her. Someone who also had reasons to want the truth exposed. Stewart's eyes widened in realization. He looked around the yard, the street, as if searching. His gaze swept past Neil's house. I sat back slightly, though Stewart couldn't see clearly through the window. "My father," Stewart said quietly. Gordon didn't confirm or deny. "I came here to serve her legal notice, that's all. What happens next is between her, me, the courts, and you." He turned to leave, then paused. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry you got caught in her web too. But you should know who you're really married to. Or not married to, as the case may be." Gordon walked back to his truck, drove away. The remaining guests dispersed quickly, eager to escape the drama. Within minutes, the yard was empty except for Stewart, still standing on the porch holding the legal papers. He looked at them again, then at his phone, presumably trying to call Millicent. She didn't answer. I could tell from his expression, the way he tried 3 times. Finally, Stewart went back inside. Lights remained on, but the house was silent now. No music, no laughter, no celebration. I watched my son move through rooms, visible through windows, picking up abandoned drinks, throwing away paper plates, mechanical movements, shock settling in. At one point, Stewart stopped in the living room, sank onto the couch, head in hands. I felt no satisfaction in this image. Stewart was my son, after all. But Stewart made choices, chose Millicent over his father, chose comfort over integrity. Now he was learning the cost. Neil broke the silence. "What happens now?" I stood, stretched. Now the pieces fall where they must. Millicent will realize she can't hide anymore. Legal papers filed, address known, bigamy exposed. I moved to the window for one last look at my house. Stewart was still on the couch, hadn't moved. The house looked different now, not celebratory but hollow. A stage after the actors left. "Gordon did his part perfectly," I said. "Never threatened her, just presented facts. All legal, all above board." Neil considered this. "You think she'll come back?" "Maybe, maybe not. Either way, she can't sell my house now. Stewart will realize their marriage is invalid, which means any claim she had through him is void. The eviction notice stands. Whether she's here or gone, they have 2 weeks left before I file court papers." I turned from the window. "I should sleep. Tomorrow I'll call Martin, update him on developments." I headed toward the guest room, but paused. "Thank you, Neil." "For everything?" Neil nodded. "What are friends for?" In the darkness of the guest room, I lay awake, not from anxiety, from the quiet satisfaction of a plan executed properly. Tomorrow, Stewart would start asking questions. Tomorrow, the legal consequences would become clear. Tonight, justice took a step forward. From Neil's window, I watched the scene unfold with the detachment of a historian observing inevitable consequences. Inside my house, visible through lit windows, guests clustered in confused groups, some in the kitchen doorway, others backing toward the living room. The body language read clearly. People wanting to leave, but uncertain how to extract themselves politely. A woman in a blue dress edged toward the front door, gestures to her husband. They slipped out quickly. 2 more couples followed. The exodus began. Through the kitchen window, Gordon remained stationary. I could see his silhouette, arms crossed, planted like he'd claimed territory. Stewart moved between Gordon and where Millicent must be, gestures frantic, questioning. Then Millicent appeared, pushing past Stewart toward the back of the house. Not the front door where guests were leaving, but the back, toward the rear exit, the yard, escape. Gordon turned, followed her trajectory through the house. Stewart trailed behind both of them, clearly lost in his own home. "She's running," Neil observed quietly. I nodded. "She always does. It's her pattern. When confronted, she vanishes." We watched the back door burst open. Millicent exploded into the backyard, stumbling in her heels on grass. Her new dress, the one she'd worn so proudly hours ago, caught on a rose bush. She yanked free without stopping, leaving fabric behind. Her car was parked on the side street, access through the back gate. Gordon emerged behind her, not running, walking deliberately. His voice carried across the yards, loud enough for neighbors to hear, for me to catch fragments. 8 years, Millicent! You can't hide anymore!" She reached the gate, fumbled with the latch. Her hands shook too badly. Gordon stopped 10 feet away, not approaching closer, but his presence overwhelming. $85,000, plus interest. It's $127,000 now. The court in Ohio has your address. You're still legally my wife. The gate finally opened. Millicent bolted through, running now in earnest. Stewart reached Gordon, grabbed his arm. "What are you talking about? Who are you?" Gordon shook him off, not rough, but firm. "Ask her. Ask your wife about Cleveland, about the business loans she took in my name, about the marriage she never ended." Stewart's face showed comprehension dawning, horror replacing confusion. Gordon raised his voice toward Millicent's retreating figure. "The lawsuit is filed. You can run to California, and it won't matter. The legal system found you." I couldn't see the side street from Neil's window, but I heard the car engine start, tires squealing, Millicent fleeing into the night. Stewart stood in the backyard, frozen. Gordon walked back toward him, movements controlled, no longer pursuing. The remaining party guests trickled through the house and out the front door. Quick departures, murmured excuses. Within minutes, the yard was empty except for Stewart and Gordon. Stewart's voice rose, angry now. "You can't just come into my house and—" "Your house?" Gordon interrupted. "This is Hosea Tucker's house. Your father owns it. And I didn't break in. The door was open. Party in progress. I'm here serving legal notice to someone who owes me 8 years of my life and 6 figures in debt." Stewart had no response. Gordon continued, calmer. "I filed divorce papers 2 weeks ago in Ohio, filed for financial restitution. The preliminary hearing is May 15th. Your wife, or not your wife, since she never divorced me, will need to appear or face default judgment." He pulled documents from his jacket, handed them to Stewart. "Everything's in there. Marriage certificate from 2015, loan documents in my name, her signature on everything, then her disappearance in 2017. Stewart took the papers like they were contaminated. "Why now? Why this way?" Gordon's expression hardened. "Because someone finally told me where to find her. Someone who apparently had his own reasons to want the truth exposed." Stewart's eyes widened. He looked around the yard, toward neighboring houses. His gaze swept across Neil's home. I instinctively leaned back from the window, though the angle and darkness made me effectively invisible. "My father," Stewart said, voice hollow. "He did this." Gordon didn't confirm or deny, just shrugged. "I came here to serve notice. What happens next is between Millicent, the Ohio courts, and you. But you should probably get a lawyer. Your marriage is invalid if she never divorced me. That affects property rights, legal standing, a lot of things." He turned toward the front of the house, heading for his truck, paused at the corner of the building. "For what it's worth, I'm sorry you got tangled in her mess. You're not the first person she's used, and you probably won't be the last. But now you know the truth. What you do with it is your business." Gordon disappeared around the house. Moments later, I saw him walk past Neil's window, toward where his truck was parked. Get in, drive away. Stewart remained in the backyard, illuminated by the porch light, holding the papers. He looked at them, looked at his phone, dialed, waited. No answer. Millicent wasn't taking calls. He tried again. Finally gave up, walked back into the empty house. The house fell silent. Lights remained on, but no movement for several minutes. Then Stewart appeared in the living room window, moving mechanically, picking up abandoned cups, plates, bottles. The detritus of a celebration that imploded. He stopped in the middle of the room, looked at his phone again, typed something, text message presumably, waited for response. Nothing. He sank onto the couch, the same couch where he and Millicent sat confidently just hours ago. His head dropped into his hands. From this distance, I couldn't see if Stewart was crying, but the posture suggested it. Broken? Neil broke the long silence. "Your son looks destroyed." I didn't move from the window. He chose this. He chose her over me, chose to believe I was the problem. Neil's voice was gentle. "He's still your son." "I know," I replied, and there was the first hint of something other than cold satisfaction in my voice. "But he needs to learn consequences before reconciliation is possible, if it's ever possible." I finally turned from the window. Gordon played his part perfectly. Never threatened violence, just presented facts. All legal, all documented. Now Stewart has to decide who he believes. I walked to Neil's kitchen, poured water, drank it slowly. My hands were steady. The plan worked exactly as designed. Millicent exposed, Stewart forced to confront reality. No laws broken. Justice, not revenge. Though the line between them felt thin right now. "What happens next?" Neil asked. I considered. "Millicent won't stay gone long. She has nowhere to go. All her connections are here, her job, her things. She'll come back within days, maybe a week, and when she does, she'll have to face both Gordon's lawsuit and my eviction notice. The 30-day period expires in 5 days. I set down the glass. Tomorrow I'll call Martin, have him ready the court filing for eviction. Stewart and Millicent have 5 days to vacate voluntarily. They won't, which means we go to court. Neil nodded slowly. Through the window, Stewart's house remained lit but lifeless. A stage after the performance, waiting for Act 2. I headed toward the guest room, but paused. First blood is drawn. Now we see who's still standing when the dust settles. Morning light filtered through Neil's guest room curtains. I woke early, checked my phone. No messages. I dressed, made coffee in Neil's kitchen, sat at the table with a clear view of my house. Stewart's car still in the driveway. Lights had been on all night. I knew because I'd checked at 3 a.m., couldn't sleep despite the satisfaction. Around 7, Stewart emerged from the house, still in last night's clothes. He walked to his car, sat in the driver's seat without starting the engine, stared at his phone. Even from this distance, I could read the defeat in his son's posture. Neil joined me at the table. Still there? I nodded. He didn't sleep either. We watched Stewart dial his phone. Wait, hang up, repeat. Millicent wasn't answering. After the third attempt, Stewart's head dropped to the steering wheel. He stayed like that for several minutes, finally started the car, backed out, drove away, probably to work, maintaining routine because what else could he do? I picked up my own phone, called Martin Caldwell. The situation has developed. I need to accelerate the eviction timeline. They have 5 days left on the notice. I want to file the court papers the day after it expires. Around noon, my phone rang. Stewart's name on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Listened minutes later. Dad, I know you're there. I know you can hear this. We need to talk. I don't understand what's happening. This man showed up, claiming Millicent is married to him, has debts, that you somehow arranged it. That can't be true. Millicent isn't answering her phone. I'm losing my mind here. Please, just call me back. The voice cracked on the last word. I deleted it. 15 minutes later, another call. This time I answered, voice cold. Stewart, Dad, thank you for picking up. Listen, there's been a huge misunderstanding. No misunderstanding. You received an eviction notice 2 weeks ago. You have 5 days remaining to vacate my property. If you're not out by April 30th, I'm filing a court order. Silence on the line, then, you can't be serious. Over one argument, you're throwing your own son onto the street? My jaw tightened. You threw me out first, physically. You chose Millicent over your father. Now you're learning who Millicent really is. She's not. That man is lying. It's some kind of scam. Public records don't lie, Stewart. Check the Cuyahoga County records yourself. Marriage certificate from 2015. No divorce filing. Your marriage to her is legally invalid. The call ended abruptly. Stewart hung up. I set down my phone. It buzzed minutes later with a text. Not from Stewart. Unknown number. This is Millicent. We need to talk. I know you're behind this. Whatever you think I did, we can fix it. Please don't do this to Stewart. He's your son. I read it twice. Considered responding. Decided on brevity. You made your choices. Face the consequences. The eviction stands. Her response came quickly. I need time. The situation is complicated. Give us 60 days. 30-day notice was given April 1st. The law doesn't negotiate. Please, Stewart doesn't deserve this. My fingers hovered over the keyboard, finally typed, You should have thought about what Stewart deserves before committing bigamy and fraud. You have until April 30th. I blocked the number. No more communication. Neil, reading over my shoulder, whistled low. That's harsh. That's justice, I corrected. She had every opportunity to be honest. Instead, she built a life on lies and tried to steal my house. I stood, paced. She's not back yet, but she's reaching out. That means she's weighing her options. 5 days later, April 30th arrived. The eviction notice expired at midnight. I sat at Neil's window in the evening, watching my house. Around 7 p.m., a car pulled up. Not Millicent's usual vehicle, something older. She got out, moved quickly to the front door. She carried a small bag, not the luggage she'd need for permanent departure. She'd been staying somewhere local, probably a hotel or a friend's place. Stewart's car was already there. He'd come home from work an hour ago. Through lit windows, I watched them in the living room. Millicent gestured frantically. Stewart's posture was closed, defensive. She reached for him. He stepped back. The argument was silent from this distance, but the body language screamed conflict. After 20 minutes, they both sat, facing each other. More talking. Millicent pulled out her phone, showed Stewart something. He shook his head. She tried again. He stood, walked away. She followed. The dance continued for an hour. Finally, they seemed to reach some accommodation. Both sank onto the couch, exhausted. She came back, Neil observed. I didn't think she would. I watched them. She has to. Her job is here, her life, and she probably thinks she can still salvage this. Convince Stewart I'm the villain, ride out the eviction, and then rebuild. My phone buzzed. Text from Martin Caldwell. Notice period expired. Filing court papers first thing tomorrow morning. Hearing will likely be scheduled within 2 weeks. The following week crawled forward. May 1st, Martin filed the eviction petition with Rochester City Court. May 3rd, Stewart and Millicent received the summons. Court hearing scheduled for May 22nd. I knew they received it because Stewart appeared at Neil's door that evening. Neil answered. I listened from inside. Is he here? Stewart's voice was strained. I need to talk to him. He doesn't want to see you, Stewart. This is insane. He's actually taking us to court? Over what? We've been living there for 3 years. We have rights. Neil's response was patient. You've been living there without a lease, without paying rent, in a house that belongs solely to your father. According to the law, you're occupants at will. He gave proper notice. You didn't leave. Now it goes to court. Tell him we'll fight this. We hired a lawyer. This is going to cost him thousands in legal fees. I'll tell him. The door closed. I emerged from the kitchen. They hired an attorney. That's interesting. Neil looked worried. Can they actually fight the eviction successfully? I shook my head. Not with the evidence I have. Property deed in my name, no lease agreement, documented notice given with proper timeline, photos of unauthorized changes they've made. The law is clear, but they'll try. Probably claim some kind of oral agreement or adverse possession. Won't work, but it'll drag things out a few more weeks. I seemed unconcerned, almost pleased. More time for Gordon's case in Ohio to progress. Mid-May, I received an update from Gordon via text. Preliminary hearing was today, May 15th. Millicent didn't appear. Her lawyer filed motion to dismiss based on statute of limitations. Judge denied it. Fraud and debt collection can be pursued within 10 years. Case moves to discovery phase. She has 30 days to provide financial records or face default judgment. I forwarded the message to Stewart's phone. Blocked number, but the message went through. Let Stewart know the walls were closing from multiple directions. 2 days later, Millicent showed up at Neil's house directly. Neil refused to let her in, but she stood on the porch, speaking through the door. Tell Hosea I know what he's doing, using that man from Ohio to harass me. I'll file a restraining order. I'll sue for harassment. I opened the door myself, face impassive. Gordon Hayes has every legal right to pursue the debt you left him with. That's between you, him, and the Ohio courts. I haven't harassed you. I've simply exercised my legal right to reclaim my property. You orchestrated this entire thing. I provided factual information to someone who was searching for you. The consequences are yours, not mine. She stepped closer. Stewart is falling apart. He can barely work. You're destroying your own son to get to me. My expression hardened, but something flickered behind my eyes. Stewart destroyed himself when he chose your lies over his father's dignity, when he raised his hands against me. He apologized for that. He's tried to apologize. Actions have consequences, Millicent. You've spent your whole life running from them. Stewart enabled you. Now you both face reality. I started to close the door. She blocked it. What do you want? Money? I'll pay you rent. Back rent for 3 years. Just drop the eviction. I want my house back. I want my life back. You can't buy that. Please. The word was desperate. Stewart is talking about ending things with me. Your plan is working. You're getting everything you wanted. Just stop now. I paused. And for the first time since this began, uncertainty crossed my face. Neil was watching from inside, the image of Stewart on the couch, head in hands. Broken? My son. My voice was quieter. The court hearing is May 22nd. If you're not out by then, the judge will order you removed. That's the timeline. What you do with it is your choice. I closed the door. Millicent stood on the porch for a long moment, then left. I returned to the living room. Neil said nothing, but his expression asked the question. "I'm not backing down," I said, but my voice lacked the earlier cold certainty. "She's manipulating you, using Stuart as leverage." "I know what she is." I sat heavily. "But Stuart, I saw him that morning, in his car. He looked—" I didn't finish. Neil sat beside me. "Like you broke him?" I didn't answer. Outside, evening deepened. My house, their house, the contested space, glowed with warm light. Inside, Stuart and Millicent were presumably preparing for the court battle. Inside here, I confronted the reality that justice sometimes cuts both ways, that my son was collateral damage in this war. "The hearing is in 5 days," I finally said. "After that, it's out of my hands. The judge decides." Neil nodded slowly, but both men knew that wasn't quite true. The judge would rule based on law, and the law was clear. I would win. The question was what that victory cost. The 5 days passed in tense preparation. June 5th arrived overcast, appropriate weather for Judgment Day. I dressed carefully that morning at Neil's house, suit and tie, the uniform of respectability. Drove to Rochester City Court downtown, arrived 30 minutes early. Martin Caldwell met me in the lobby, leather briefcase in hand, confident expression. "Everything's in order, property deed, eviction notice with proof of service, photographs of unauthorized modifications, Neil's written statement about the physical altercation. Their lawyer will argue implied permission or oral agreement, but without documentation, they have nothing." We entered courtroom 3B. Stuart and Millicent were already seated at the defendant's table with their attorney, a young woman, mid-30s, expensive suit but nervous energy. Stuart looked hollow, 20 pounds thinner than 2 months ago. Millicent sat rigid, face carefully blank. She didn't look at me when I took my seat across the aisle. The judge entered, Judge Patricia Brennan, mid-50s, reputation for no-nonsense rulings. Case number 2025 CV 3847, Tucker versus Tucker and Porter. Plaintiff's eviction petition. Counselors, are we ready to proceed? Millicent's lawyer went first, arguing that Stuart and Millicent lived in the house for 3 years, with my knowledge and permission, constituting an implied lease agreement. She claimed my sudden eviction notice was retaliatory after a minor family disagreement, that I was using the legal system to punish my son for personal reasons. She presented no documents, only Stuart's testimony. "My father let us move in after we got married. He said we could stay as long as we needed. We've maintained the house, paid utilities, treated it as our home." Judge Brennan interrupted. "Did you pay rent?" Stuart hesitated. "No, but we covered household expenses." "Did you have a written lease?" "No, it was a family arrangement." "Did your father ever ask you to leave before this notice?" "No, but—" "Thank you, that's sufficient." Martin presented my case methodically. Sole property ownership documented since 1985, no lease agreement written or otherwise, proper 30-day notice served April 1st with proof of certified mail receipt, photographic evidence of modifications made without owner consent, neighbor testimony regarding physical altercation that precipitated plaintiff's departure. Judge Brennan examined each document, asked me direct questions. "Mr. Tucker, why are you evicting your son?" My response was measured. "They took over my home without permission, made changes without consultation, and when I objected, I was physically assaulted. I left to avoid further conflict and gave proper legal notice for them to vacate. They refused." Judge Brennan didn't deliberate long. "This is straightforward. Mr. Tucker Sr. owns the property outright. There's no written lease, no documented rent payments, no legal basis for the defendants to remain. The plaintiff gave proper notice as required by New York law. The defendant's claim of implied permission is insufficient without documentation. Furthermore, evidence of physical altercation supports plaintiff's assertion that the living arrangement became untenable." She looked directly at Stuart and Millicent. "I'm ordering eviction. You have until June 30th, 25 days, to vacate the premises. If you're not out by that date, the sheriff will enforce removal. Court costs are awarded to the plaintiff." The gavel fell. Final. Stuart's head dropped. Millicent grabbed her lawyer's arm, whispered urgently. The lawyer shook her head. Nothing more to be done. As we filed out, Stuart tried to approach me in the hallway. Martin stepped between us. "No contact, please." Stuart's voice broke. "Dad, please. We have nowhere to go." I met his eyes, saw the desperation, the betrayal of realization. My voice was quiet but unyielding. "You should have thought about that before. You have 25 days. I walked away, Martin beside me. Behind us, Millicent's angry voice rose, blaming Stuart, blaming the lawyer, blaming everyone except herself. The Ohio case proceeded simultaneously. Mid-June, I received updates from Gordon via text. Discovery phase complete. Her financial records show she's been living well. New car lease, expensive purchases, travel. Judge isn't sympathetic. Next hearing, July 12th, for final judgment. Stuart and Millicent moved through the house like ghosts those final weeks of June, packing belongings, arranging storage. I drove by occasionally, watched boxes accumulate on the porch, furniture being loaded into rental trucks. I didn't go inside. Not yet. The house was still technically theirs until the 30th. On June 28th, 2 days before deadline, Neil mentioned he saw them arguing in the driveway, loud enough for neighbors to hear. She was screaming that this was his fault, that his father destroyed their lives. He was yelling back about lies and fraud. It got ugly. June 30th arrived. I parked down the street at noon, watched the final moving truck pull away around 2 p.m. Stuart's car left at 3. Millicent's car, different one again, probably borrowed, left at 4:30. The house stood empty. I waited another hour to be certain, then drove to the house. Used my key, stepped inside. The silence was profound. They left it relatively clean, no spite damage at least. But it was empty, echoing. My furniture was gone, sold, or taken. The walls showed patches where they'd hung pictures. Kitchen cabinets were bare. It was a shell of the home I'd left 3 months ago. July 15th, Gordon texted, 1. Judge ordered full payment, $127,000 plus court costs, 3-year payment plan or bankruptcy. Her lawyer says she's filing Chapter 7. Wanted you to know. Thanks for everything. I called him, first actual voice conversation since April. Gordon sounded tired but satisfied. She's filing bankruptcy next week. I won't see the money, but that's not the point anymore. The judgment exists. Her credit is destroyed for years. She can't just disappear and start over clean this time. What will you do now? I asked. Gordon was quiet for a moment. Move on, I guess, finally. 8 years of my life spent looking for answers. Now I have them. She's a fraud, a liar, and now it's documented by 2 courts in 2 states. That's enough. We talked for a few more minutes, comparing notes on the parallel cases. Before hanging up, Gordon added, Your son called me last week, asked if I'd consider dropping the case, said Millicent was falling apart. I told him the truth. She fell apart years ago. She just hid it well. He needed to hear that from someone other than you. I absorbed this. How did he sound? Lost, angry at her, angry at himself. Maybe there's hope for him yet. After the call ended, I sat with that thought. Maybe. Early August, I learned through Neil's neighborhood network that Stuart rented a small apartment across town, 1 bedroom in a complex near the highway. Millicent left Rochester entirely. Neil heard from someone who heard from someone that she went to her parents upstate, then to California to stay with her sister, running again. New state, new start. Stuart filed for divorce immediately, or annulment technically, since their marriage was invalid from the beginning. The paperwork arrived as notification to me as an interested party. Stuart listed my address as his permanent residence history. The document was dry, legal language, marriage void ab initio due to existing undissolved prior marriage of respondent, Latin phrases for betrayal. August 1st, I received formal notice that Millicent Porter filed Chapter 7 bankruptcy in Western New York District Court. Assets, minimal, debts, $143,000, including the Ohio judgment. Discharge except for the court-ordered restitution, which technically survives bankruptcy, but she'll never pay. Gordon was right. The judgment itself is the victory. On paper, official permanent record. Millicent Porter is a fraud. August 10th, I began preparations to move back into my house. I'd been living at Neil's for nearly 5 months, long enough to feel displaced from my own life. Tomorrow I'd return home, reclaim my space. Tonight, I sat at Neil's kitchen table with 2 glasses of whiskey, rare indulgence. Neil raised his glass. To justice? I considered, then shook my head slightly. To consequences. Justice is what we call it when consequences finally arrive. We drank. Outside, summer evening faded to night. Somewhere across town, Stuart sat in a small apartment, alone, contemplating the wreckage of his marriage and relationship with his father. Somewhere in California, Millicent started over again, but this time with bankruptcy and court judgments following her like shadows. And here, I prepared to go home. Not victorious exactly, but vindicated. Tomorrow I reclaim my house. The question was whether I'd reclaimed anything else worth having. Morning, August 11th. I pulled into my driveway for the first time as sole occupant since March, 5 months away from my own home. The house looked smaller than I remembered, more vulnerable. Paint was chipped near the garage door. Lawn needed attention. I sat in the car for a moment, key in hand, gathering myself. This was victory. Why didn't it feel triumphant? Neil's truck pulled up behind me. We'd arranged this. Moving back alone felt wrong somehow. Neil got out carrying cleaning supplies. Ready? I nodded, exited my car. The front door opened to that distinctive smell of an empty house. Stale air, dust, absence. We walked through together. Living room bare except for impressions in carpet where furniture stood. Kitchen cabinets open and hollow. My study, the former guest room, still had the daybed Stuart and Millicent installed, but nothing else. I stood in the doorway, remembering the night I discovered this change, the cascade of events it triggered. Where do we start? Neil asked. I looked around my hollow house. Everywhere. We start everywhere. We spent the day cleaning, erasing traces. I brought essential furniture from storage. Some pieces I'd moved to Neil's garage months ago. Some I bought new. My old desk returned to the study. The daybed moved to the curb. Books back on shelves, my history texts and reference volumes finding their familiar positions. The gaps remained obvious. The house was underfurnished, missing years of accumulated life. But it was mine again. Mid-afternoon, while arranging my bedroom, I found something Stuart left behind. A frame photo from his childhood, maybe age 8, showing father and son at some long-forgotten baseball game. Both smiling, Stuart's arm around my shoulder. The glass was cracked, frame bent slightly. Discarded or forgotten. I stared at it for long minutes. Neil appeared in the doorway. Found something? I showed him the photo. He was a good kid once. He's still your son. I know. I set the photo on the dresser, face down. Not ready to look at it yet, but unable to throw it away. The work continued. By evening, the house was livable, clean, organized, functional. Still empty in places, still echoing, but recovering. Neil left around 7 with promises to check in tomorrow. I sat on my porch, with coffee, watching the street as evening fell. Home. The word felt both right and incomplete. 4 days passed. I settled into rhythms, re-establishing routines. Morning coffee on the porch, afternoons organizing what remained, evenings planning what came next. August 15th, mid-afternoon, my phone rang. Stuart's name on the screen. I almost didn't answer, but something, obligation, curiosity, residual paternal instinct, made me pick up. Stuart. Silence on the line, then. Dad, I need to say something. Can you listen, please? The voice was wrecked, nothing like the confident son who shoved me 5 months ago. I sat at my kitchen table. I'm listening? Stuart took a shaking breath. I'm sorry for everything. For choosing Millicent over you, for not believing you, for pushing you that night, for all of it. Pause. She confessed last week, before she left. Said she'd been planning to sell the house after you died, use the money to start over somewhere else. She talked about it like it was reasonable, like you wouldn't need it anymore, so why shouldn't we benefit? I felt sick listening to her. I closed my eyes. Vindication tasting more bitter than expected. She used me, Stuart continued. Used us both. I see that now, but I let her. I chose to be blind because it was easier than facing the truth. You tried to warn me, and I called you paranoid. I'm so sorry, Dad. I was quiet for a long moment. When I spoke, my voice was measured, controlled. I accept your apology, Stuart, but accepting and forgiving are different things. Trust isn't rebuilt with one phone call. I know, I'm not asking for forgiveness yet. I'm just... I wanted you to know I understand now. What she was, what I enabled. Stuart's voice cracked. I lost everything. My marriage, well, it was never real anyway. My home, my relationship with you, my self-respect. I look at my life and I don't recognize it. That's called consequences, I said, not unkindly. You made choices. Millicent was who she was, but you chose to believe her over your own father. You chose to raise your hands against me. Those were your decisions, not hers. I know. Do you? Because I'm not sure you do. You're sorry because you got hurt, because Millicent's lies caught up with her and took you down too. But are you sorry for what you did to me? For pushing me out of my own home? For celebrating my absence? Silence, then quietly. Yes, I'm sorry for that too. I believed him, surprisingly. Then, here's what happens next. You work on yourself. Figure out who you are without someone else pulling your strings. Build a life that's honest, even if it's hard. When you've done that, not tomorrow, not next month, maybe not for years, then we can talk about rebuilding what we had. Stuart accepted this, voice small. Okay, I can do that. I want to do that. We talked for a few more minutes, practical matters. Stuart's apartment, his job, he was managing, barely. Therapy he started, trying to understand how he got here. Before hanging up, Stuart asked, "The house, is it okay? Did we damage it too badly?" "It's empty but intact. I'm rebuilding slowly." I'm glad you got it back. You deserve to." After the call ended, I sat with my coffee, now cold. The conversation felt necessary but unsatisfying, like lancing a wound, painful, relieving pressure, but not healing. 3 days later, August 18th, official documents arrived. First, notice from Gordon Hayes' attorney. Millicent finalized divorce from Gordon, 8 years late. Second, notice from Stuart's attorney. Annulment papers filed and processed. Marriage to Millicent legally void. Third, bankruptcy discharge notice. Millicent's debts discharged except the Ohio judgment, which remained on record. The paperwork was clinical, reducing months of chaos to legal terminology. I filed them in a folder labeled simply 2025 Resolution, closure in duplicate and triplicate. That evening, Neil stopped by with dinner, sandwiches from the deli we both liked. We ate on the porch, watching neighbors walk dogs, kids ride bikes in the fading light. Normal life, continuing around us. August 20th arrived with clear skies, late summer warmth. I woke early, made coffee, carried it to the porch. My porch, my house, my life reclaimed. Neil appeared shortly after. We'd fallen into a routine, morning coffee together more often than not. Neil settled into the second chair. "You won, Hosea. Everything you set out to do. House back," Millicent exposed. "Legal vindication. How does it feel?" I watched the sunrise, considering the question seriously. Like justice. Cold, complete, necessary justice. But not triumph. There's a difference. Your son? My son is collateral damage. He made his choices, but I made mine too. I could have handled things differently, maybe. Found a way that didn't destroy him in the process of stopping her. Neil shook his head. You gave him chances. He chose her. I know. But knowing doesn't eliminate the cost. We sat in comfortable silence. Finally, I spoke again. I got my house back, Neil. I got my life back. But I lost my son in the process, at least for now. Maybe forever. Was it worth it? Neil didn't answer immediately. Then, ask yourself, if you hadn't acted, where would you be? Still living here at their mercy? Waiting to die so Millicent could sell your home? Or pushed out permanently, watching from a distance as they erased you? I nodded slowly. You're right, I had no choice. Sometimes justice costs something, but injustice costs more. The sun climbed higher, promising heat. I finished my coffee, set down the cup. Neil watched me. What's next? You've got your house. What do you do with this new chapter? I considered. Live, on my terms. Maybe teach again, guest lectures, not full-time. Reconnect with old colleagues, travel perhaps. Things I couldn't do when I was accommodating Stuart and Millicent's invasion. I paused. And leave the door open. Not wide open, not unlocked, but not sealed shut either. If Stuart does the work he needs to do, becomes someone honest and whole again, then maybe someday we can rebuild something. Not what we had. That's gone. But something new. Neil nodded approval. That's fair. That's more than fair. We sat together as morning deepened into day. The house behind us stood solid, reclaimed, quietly triumphant. No fanfare, no grand celebration. Just a man in his 60s sitting on his own porch, drinking coffee with his friend, planning a future that was finally, completely his own. Justice, I reflected, isn't always loud. Sometimes it's quiet as a closed door, as simple as a house key in your pocket, as profound as knowing you stood your ground when pushed and refused to be erased. Sometimes justice is just coming home. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the left.